kick it off by inviting Jeff and Chuck up from NovaVis. Please welcome Jeff and Chuck. All right, we'll get you going here, guys. And flicker. All right, take it away.
Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. My name is Jeff Keever, one of the founding partners for NovaVis, and this is
Chuck DeCure, also founding partner of NovaVis.
And we're going to tag team this morning, and NovaVis is we became very interested in offshore wind as a result of some of the projects that are being developed along the east coast of the United States. And as we thought about what was being done, we realized that it's a brand new industry in this country. There is no supply chain for offshore wind anywhere in the United States. There are some onshore wind projects that have developed over the years, but nothing with respect to any offshore. So as we realized there was nothing in place, we thought, why don't we think about developing a offshore wind supply chain concept that's very different, think about it in a new context, and we created this platform that connects the developers, contractors, and the folks that would install an offshore wind farm with uploading and populating the services and vendors that can provide the necessary foundations and support mechanisms to create and develop an offshore wind farm. We thought this IT platform could identify the services that are needed and then match it up with the companies that provide those types of services. Because it's a brand new industry, and the term here that it's been abundantly neglected, we met with a number of people across from the European developers that have been engaged in this for about 2 decades. The Germans, the Danes, the Belgians, and the Dutch, and they seem to think the idea made a lot of sense. In discussing this with people here in the United States, it was obvious that there is no supply chains, and this is a unique opportunity going forward. We are not geocentric. We are domiciled here in downtown Norfolk, and we could provide this service for any wind farm along the East Coast or West Coast, or actually globally. And we also have been approached by a couple other industries that are pretty well established. The automotive industry, of course, they've been making automobiles, and they have a very robust supply chain that's already in place. To change that to our platform, we think ultimately could happen, but we want to remain focused on offshore wind because it's a new and growing opportunity. Additionally, I'm a Virginia native. We were just sort of talking about that a minute ago, and felt like we wanted to try to focus on the Virginia offshore wind development initially before we took it to other wind farms that are being considered, but it is applicable to those other areas. Do you want to add something?
Sure. Well, 2 things. One is the other partner in this is the technology side is Intel. So just so you know, we've got some pretty serious horsepower behind the technology, which is very cool. But what I would add is just as a historical perspective, you know, our discussions with the Europeans over the years, and Jeff and I have been lucky enough to spend a lot of our careers in Europe and maritime construction, terminal operations, and the like, offshore, onshore, the whole deal. And the question to all of them, and this includes governments and manufacturers and so forth, was, you know, you've been doing this since 1990. You know, what are learning curves? Are you happy to share that with us so we don't make the same mistakes? And all of them said the same thing, basically, that when they got out of the gate, they didn't have a coordinated view of contracts, contractual risk transfer, a consolidated view of how to deal with vendors, organized vendors, or supply chain. And 25 years later, that's still bothering them internally, even though they're now getting into 2nd generation life cycles. So it's kind of what really prompted us to come back to the U.S. and try to figure out what can we do to prevent that from happening. So it's got huge European support. They've been very helpful with that. And some of the things that we've really kind of picked, what we just talked about, the kind of the risk avoidance situation. and the redundancy of dealing with vendors and the like. And the platform, it may be in the next slide, but the collaboration area, there are several ways you can do this. One is we came back and said, okay, well, you can build a database. Well, great, there are a lot of databases. They're valuable, they're useful. You can build a searchable database that's valuable and useful. But it's also stale and dead in that it's complete. And how do you keep it up and keep the staff going to keep it up on a constant basis? So the charge to the Intel guys were, all right, what do we do with this? And the idea was we build a collaborative community. Now, it certainly has database aspects in it because there are 700-800 vendors and Europeans in here already. But the whole concept is really about all of these people being able to work together in public and private groups within the site and be able to discuss what's going on. The engineering community has really kind of embraced this. Their comments were, look, when I do a project, I'm doing the I-264 extension or something, and I have 25 vendors, well, I have to answer the same question 25 times. Within our platform, you've got these consolidated areas, and now you have these forums and the like, so it really is more of an interactive community than it is anything else, and that's been the value, and brought back to Europe to show them if they thought that had value, and they did, and then back to the U.S. again. So.
In part of this, we hope that this region can become the offshore supply chain hub for wind. We have a great workforce here in the area, as many of you know, with the shipbuilding and ship repair industry, and those skills could be transferred to these offshore foundations and turbines that would be necessary for the installation. Additionally, we're close. And so you'll all know this, so that's kind of easy. This is one of our screenshots from the actual platform that we have, and it's one of the sections that we developed with respect to business development, that we are trying to inform people about offshore wind and some of the new developments that occur on an ongoing basis. You can upload information to this, articles, news releases, whatever, that may be of interest to just be up to speed with this. And just a quick comment on the Dominion project that is scheduled to go offshore. It was initially intended to be completed by 2017. However, the projected cost development of that was in the range of $230 to $250 million. The contract came in at about $400 million without a cap, and they've delayed that and spending a year to determine some cost reduction activity. But it would be located at 24 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, and both Chuck and I are on this task force to help on the cost reduction of that. We think that our platform can provide a great work space opportunity for collaboration to reduce the cost of this and ultimately build this demonstration project of 2 turbines, and then ultimately the wind farm off the coast of Virginia. Knowing that we're time constrained, I think we'll stop at this point.
How do we do time-wise?
Good, you just went over just by a little bit.
Just
We're not hard, but let's go ahead and, yeah, let's open up to questions.
Don't we need one more thing? What do you guys need from us? What's the one thing you want from us?
We'd like your support, suggestions for improvement. How can we be successful? We're not here asking for financial support at all. We're just trying to spread the word about what we think that NovaVis can provide for this region and for what we think is a growing, emerging offshore wind industry that leads to ultimately, 4 million megawatts of power along the East Coast.
Okay, we got hands going up all over the place. All right, so let's go ahead and start right here.
2 questions. First question, I think you mentioned how the name came about. And the second one is, what's your business model? Do members in the supply chain pay a fee to become a member of your organization? How do you make money as a company? Sure.
Yeah, well, the name, we just played kind of, I mean, it means new energy or new force in Latin.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it came from. And fortunately, I was really bored on a Saturday. It's like,
What's one of the hardest problems in business? Is
yeah, it's to find something. And something that wasn't registered already. So that's
Sure.
on the financial side, there's several things. One is, one of the questions was, what can you do? To get onto the site and register your company and to jump into some of the, like you saw the business development group and other groups is free. And frankly, this week, kind of because of this, and I guess thanks to you, maybe pumping some stuff out. I mean, there have been several people already jumped in, very quickly set up their own company pages and individual pages and started uploading like videos and so forth for their companies. There's a whole nother level of stuff that gets into things like common applications. What we did was we got companies like Bechtel and Halliburton and KBR and all, and Dominion and the like, and we grabbed all of their vendor kind of application criteria and we merged it into one. So that now if you go into the site and we can pump out the criteria for the common app, and it's fairly simple. We really kind of brought it way down so you're not just overburdened with a bunch of stuff. And I think there are 4 areas, and you kind of go through and tick a bunch of boxes. Well, that brings that brings it to a whole other level. Now you get that stuff to the Dominions and ABRs, or the guys up and down the coast that we deal with, the Europeans, who already see these guys are pre-screened, have this ability, whether it's a small business or otherwise, and ISO, and I mean, anything you want you can put in there. The other level of, or the other revenue situation is project specific. We're engaged, for example, with the Wind Energy Foundation out of Washington, D.C. It's very project specific. Whether it's for Dominion and working on particular projects, we have a bunch of individual projects. And one thing which has been very interesting here is to watch the number of people set up private groups. And what I mean by private is you can't even search for their group on there. And people like Oceaneering and Fugro have set up these private collaborative groups inviting us into some but not in others, so we really can't see it either, which is kind of cool for them because they have deliverables, tasks, calendars, and so forth. They set it up, do a little project, and kill it, and start a new one, or get out. And the Dresser-Rand guys and Oceaneering have started a small private group for wave energy in connection with the offshore wind stuff, so that's kind of interesting.
So Chuck, when you say project specific, does that mean you're bidding it into, you're like partnering up with the general contractor and bidding it in as part of their service?
It depends.
Okay.
That's really their call.
Okay.
And a lot of times it's people just coming to us saying, I need this platform.
How do you price it though? Is this, I guess we're really, how do you price that?
It depends on the number of touches and so forth.
Got it.
I mean,
Okay.
now back to the individual situation.
Yeah.
You've got the free deal, right? When you start getting the common app and some of these other levels of really getting into it, it's $1,000 a year. And that's for your whole company. That's not a per seat deal. If you get 25 guys, 25 guys will be on there. You got 10, you got 100, it's fine.
So it's subscription-based.
Yeah, subscription-based there. And the project fees just really, it depends on the touches and what they're looking for. But if Dominion, we're working with them on a couple of projects. If they come in and say, well, look, we want to use this platform for the stakeholder situation. And so there's going to be 45 people in here, European connections, and we need these 10 buckets, which include subsea stuff and turbines and cables. So we just set up these buckets and private groups. We back into it.
All right, Nisha.
I have 2 questions. Approximately how many nautical miles offshore are you looking to set the mills? And also number 2, with the offshore drilling proposal being drafted and being presented to Congress in 18 months, what is your alternative plan if this bill does get approved?
To answer your first question, 24 nautical miles off the coast. Second question, we're focused on the offshore wind supply chain. If offshore oil and gas progresses, this lease block area has already been identified by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and it has been leased to Dominion, and that would not change at all with development of oil and gas. That's further off the coast. If our platform could assist in the oil and gas, we would certainly consider spinning something off for that segment. That's already a pretty mature industry, and their supply chain is pretty well developed. But we think maybe if they come to the East Coast, it could be something that would be something to enhance that industry. But I think there's going to be a whole lot of debate, and there's already some pushback coming. So I think it's up to our tell.
So I went on your guys' website yesterday and I watched that 1-minute overview thing, and I still wasn't quite sure what it is that y'all did, but the presentation today is a little more clear to me. What is the onboarding process for companies that come on at a subscription level? Like, how long does it take for you to get them set up? Is there a lot of consulting that you guys have to do to get them like into the system?
No, it's-
24 hours max.
Okay.
I mean, for example, Monday, there were 3 companies that jumped in, joined. By Monday afternoon, they were all set up, ready to go and active.
Cool.
So-
So the people are finding it easy to.
Yeah, it's quite, it's very, we made it intentionally intuitive, because we're not tech guys. It's like, if we can figure it out, then we're good to go, which is kind of part of the challenge.
Cool.
So,
Okay.
and it depends, when you get into, the common app stuff and some of the more complex stuff, it now kind of pushes back to the other side. The technology's there and it's pretty easy. It's like filling in some blanks and ticking some boxes. So it's really about your company kind of going through the process, which we figured was 20 minutes if you really sat down and took the time.
Is there a question here?
So could you go back to your ecosystem slide just a second? That one, I love that. So there are already a lot of industries where this already exists that are already offshore. So oil and gas rigs, the cable sustainment, for international cables. What distinguishes you from all the existing offshore supply chains that already exist for these things?
It's pretty significant. I mean, I'm a native of New Orleans. I grew up in shipbuilding and maritime manufacturing and in the oil and gas world.
Right.
And the oil and gas world is very different, oddly enough. I mean, lessons learned, no question about it, using the jacket technology to do these foundations. And we're also, Jeff and I have been, for the past 5 years, one of us or the other, chairman of Virginia Offshore Wind Coalition. So we're very tied with the Ship Repair Association of VMA. And so all of these, there are very small variances in these things, but they're significant. You can't just go down and lay down a bunch of blades at Newport News and they say, okay, well, good, we're ready to go. And we work with Newport News on that, so.
Maybe because you're experts, you know what you said, but I don't. So just some feedback that,
No,
to me, that's important to be able to distinguish yourself because.
And I appreciate that, and your
Yeah.
point's well taken. The existing industries for oil and gas, or shipbuilding, ship repair, have to do some significant modifications to the way they have worked in the past to do offshore wind. Offshore wind is not replicating oil and gas. It's different. I know it's offshore, I know it's energy.
I know.
It sounds to me as though, if I could just, it sounds to me like it is such a specific, all of these industries are so very specific that I can tell you what happened is that the oil and gas IT systems are entirely wrapped around everything that's oil and gas.
Right.
The word oil and gas is through everything, and you can't just port that over to wind. So it really becomes the fact that it's such an expert domain. You know everybody in that domain. You get everybody in there, so we know all the experts in wind. And we get everybody in there, and we've got the database and the community.
It's a training issue too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big issue.
So I'm a village contrarian.
No, it's all right. No, please.
So there's a lot of money in oil and gas. I know there are some very specific things about oil and gas drilling, but you're talking supply chain. So if you're talking about installing something 24 miles offshore, I think there are probably a lot of companies already have that knowledge. If you're talking about doing service and maintenance operations offshore, again, manufacturing components. So to me, once the money flows to offshore, there's going to be some unique proprietary pieces to the offshore. But when I look at the supply chain, it's not as clear to me that the supply chain that's going to support offshore is as unique.
Well, we should get together and discuss the minute.
Nataris, the tug camp company should.
Yeah, because I'll just give you one quick example on the installation side. The vessels that install this stuff are all foreign flag vessels. So you got huge Jones Act issues. So it's not readily available. And the offshore supply vessels in the Gulf Coast, they all have to be converted and brought up here if you want to do that. We've gone through all this analysis. So we'd be happy to sit down and talk about all of these aspects and the differences, including bringing in the ship repairs guys who we work with to work with all this, including workforce development.
I'm just trying to, I'm going like with the marketing, what's the buzz, what are you?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to get at is, I'm seeing it, it's coming out in the presentation, but are you just, I don't say just, are you like a digitalized supply catalog? I know it's more than that, but it
It's more than
seems
that.
like you're gonna connect the pieces.
The concept is that the vendors are uploaded onto the platform, and their services are identified, what they can perform. And the developers put it into 10 different buckets of what they need,
Okay.
and those are then matched up, yes.
One of the things that has been suggested to us, particularly on the Intel side, is that this has a lot of media capability. So there's also a media company wrapped into this when you get into the informational levels.
The people, products, and processes.
So you're like the wind, offshore Angie's catalog, kind of a, I hate to be that analogy, but that's what I'm trying to
That's very
wrap.
interesting, 'cause if you think about a Facebook or LinkedIn kind of deal, right? You're just driving it much deeper and singularly, right?
Steve, and then Elizabeth, and then we'll.
I remember when you guys started up and seeing what you guys are doing, and you talk about this whole community, and you mentioned Bechtel and Oceaneering. How big of a community do you have in right now, and how much buy-in have you got from some of the major players? Are they members of your organization?
And the European companies, the biggest logistics company in the world, in Germany's part of on board, the German government, the Danish government, Dutch, etc., Bechtel, Oceaneering, Fugro, Dominion.
How about here in the States? You mentioned a lot of Europeans.
Well, I mean, the Oceaneering guys are based here, right?
Right.
And they're Houston-based. And KBR, which is also Houston-based, but in this project, interestingly enough, they're using the London office for whatever reason. So,
Domiciled here in global companies.
yeah, in Fugro, it's Dave Sackett, who's based down here, who you may know.
In Norfolk.
So all of it drives out of the U.S. versions of those folks.
Was it, did you have?
No, I was just
Okay,
making
just
sure
wondering,
that.
how many
Okay.
members do you have?
There are
Ballpark.
Yes, sir.
760 or something in there right now. And if you just jump in and go to vendors, you can just have a look.
Wow, 760. Yeah, good
Including
question.
and educational. Sorry.
Are you working with the Dominion project? It would seem like that would make a very nice case study for you.
We are working with the Dominion project.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We are working with Dominion on the project. Dominion has put together, Jeff mentioned earlier, a stakeholders team to kind of do an analysis of the cost issues that have come through with the bids. And we were actually probably the first two people they called before the announcement. And then we actually were meeting with them prior to their larger meeting next Tuesday, just Jeff and I and Dominion. So we're very engaged with that.
Yeah, it seems like that would make a very nice case study, and then you can use that to sell other projects.
Absolutely. And we were invited to meet with Department of Interior, Bureau of Ocean Energy and Management, Director Hopper, and her deputies and their economists. We've had a lot of meetings in Washington with the Department of Energy about this whole deal and beyond wind. So it's been pretty exciting little run for us.
We have a question right here in the back, sir? Yes.
Yeah. As what I see is a big information clearinghouse, and I applaud you for coming up with this idea, because I work in every industry there is, from paper mills to nuclear power plants, and the biggest thing that we have trouble with is coordinating each other. And that's what I see as one of your big selling points is if I'm the project engineer on a windmill 24 miles out the stuff, and I need to tell somebody something, and they're in 9 different countries and 15 different states, it becomes a nightmare. And because it's something as simple as getting your toolbox from where it is to where it needs to be to get on a boat to go to because I go offshore down in Texas, and to get the toolbox on the boat and the boat to the right platform and you at the platform and the tools all at the same time is literally 50% of the job.
Well, you've hit on something that is a part of this, and Chuck mentioned it. It's that in a particular project, it could be divided into multiple mini projects.
Right.
And a private group can be created by that project engineer and invite specific participants in. And that can be your workspace that's behind a firewall that your company wouldn't let people get behind, nor would they. But this is fully protected, we can't even see it, and that can be your workspace to
And
advance.
that way, because I see it as being able to coordinate things quickly over
Yes.
a broad range.
Yes, sir.
For us, I mean, we've had to charter airplanes to go to offshore things,
Yeah.
and then you get a plane from Norfolk to land in Louisiana, to get on a boat, to go offshore, to get something fixed, and you find out that it would have been, they had a boat the day before, and we could have put all that stuff on instead of having us, it would have saved 50 grand just in shipping.
It's interesting to that point, just real quickly, Oceaneering, when we first showed them this, their comment was that they have 140 offices around the world, and that they instantly recognize that they have, if they have something that they figured out in Jakarta that was really cool, maybe on the purchasing side or some kind of thing, to get that information to Houston or to Norfolk or anywhere else is nearly impossible in the network.
I find that with my favorite customer is GE, and we go all over the creation with GE oil, GE nuclear, but all these different GEs, I have to be a vendor from into each department, because God forbid GE will be able to pull up one thing and say, here's CBG, and we need him on an oil job this week and on a turbine job next week, and then the week after that we need him in manufacturing job. And 3 different companies, and this, I see this would be just absolutely.
Sounds like a great customer.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we have time for, let's go ahead and, somebody who hasn't asked a question.
First of all, my apologies for interrupting something, but the second one, and maybe you already touched on this, just speaking to this gentleman's example, how it would have saved him 50% of his work there. Have you guys been able to quantify that or translate it into financials as part of maybe speaking about what you're doing here with this process, like how your streamlining translates into dollars?
I'm not sure we've done an analysis on the financial side of that. I think an anecdotal story, as the gentleman just told, would be probably more compelling than trying to figure that out at this point. I mean, we haven't, there are no wind farms that we're involved with that are currently under construction, and so we haven't, implemented that piece of it. But I mean, we think just simply the capability in those private work areas would be pretty obvious to what could be a great cost savings.
And ultimately, that analysis would occur as the data is being built. I mean, that's a natural.
Okay, so we thank you very much. NovaVis, those are really great questions. Be sure, if you guys have more questions, you can talk after this, exchange cards and whatnot.